Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. Today I have on with me for the first hour, I got Jameson Welsh from believethehype.com. How you doing today, Jameson?
Doing well, man. I was getting ready for the NBA season. Media day is tomorrow. So it's like the official start of the NBA season. So, glad to be on here. It's going to be an interesting ride and a hell of a season.
We'll start here a little bit with some NBA. What has been the most intriguing storyline, leading into training camp and media days, that hasn't really been talked about this offseason?
Well, there's a handful. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of under the radar, but a big thing is this, man. A big thing is Greg Monroe pretty much, going into, training camp with a new deal. I mean, he has signed his qualifying offer. He's not getting a new deal. And for Detroit, the roster they have, to either sign him to a long-term deal or to move him would be ideal. But it's just a very weird situation. So that's something you really no one's really talking about because Greg Monroe is a good player, not a great player. Not an all-star guy, but at the same time, he's a solid player. But the Detroit Pistons aren't a major team, so no one's really talking about that. And also, I mean, Eric Bledsoe got paid, so people are talking about that, but no one's talking about the ill effects of having three-point guards on a roster, especially when you're paying all three-point guards $7.5 million and up. It doesn't quite make sense what they're going to do with those three guys, so it remains to be seen, but it's very interesting situations all around the league.
With the, coming into the media days, now the big talk is the rumor of Hibbert for Dion Waiters and, first-round pick. And Brendan Haywood, what's your opinion on that deal if it goes through? It doesn't really make sense to me from Cleveland's standpoint, unless there is still some friction there with Waiters and Irving, and they're trying to get rid of that. It seems like they're giving up quite a bit for Hibbert.
Well, I mean, at the same time, Hibbert was an all-star last year. He did struggle, but he's a big man that has some skills. He's a guy that he can play. I mean, he can play when his mind's right, when his confidence is up. He's a guy that can play pretty well. So it's not like he's just a no-one. Yes, we know he did struggle last year at times, but he's a quality player. He's a guy that, can do a lot of things on the basketball court. And really, that trade is not even a bad trade because you're pretty much trading Dion Waiters and the number one for him. Which isn't a bad idea. Whenever you can improve up the center position, especially when you have a guy like Anderson Varejao who is not going to stay healthy. We know how the story ends. We know Anderson Varejao cannot stay healthy. Simple plain. We all know that. It's no secret. So, you got to get some sort of insurance there because the last thing you want to do is go into a series with Chicago or Washington and you don't have any bigs. Or Kevin Love's your best big, your only big, and he's playing center. You don't want to have to go through that. So they're trying to create as much depth as possible. But I mean, it would be a steal for them, and it would be a salary dump for Indiana. At the end of the day, I don't see Bird trading within the division. I just don't see that.
Do you think that there's too much? With Cleveland, you got LeBron obviously, but Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. 0 playoff games between the two. Do you think people are buying too much into them early on, or do you think just because how weak the East is that they can win the East even with them not having any playoff experience whatsoever? Because I think it's underrated having a one playoff run in one of those two is big enough. But to have your second and third best players not having any playoff experience, I think that hurts.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I do think that I think it was a I don't think it's a bad thing to have a playoff experience because you have LeBron James, and having him is key. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, especially in the East, because all it takes is a couple games in the first round to get that whole experience thing out. I think the more important thing for that team is just overall health. I think the health of, those two guys, especially Kevin Love, who's had injuries in the past, and Kyrie Irving, who's had injuries. And if their injuries aren't short injuries, their injuries require you to be on the DL for like a month or so. And those are injuries you can't have when your roster isn't that deep. So we'll see what takes place. I'm more concerned about that if I'm a Cavs fan than anything else.
Who else in the East? I mean, if there's somebody to knock off the Cavs in the East, who do you think it is? I mean, the majority think it's the Bulls, but there's a lot of question marks there as far as, their best player having injury history, and who knows what he's going to come back and be. And then, Indiana would have been another potential, but again, their best player's out. Who do you think in the East? Because I like Washington and I like Toronto. I don't know if they're title contenders in the East, but who do you think could give Cleveland a good run?
Well, Washington's my pick to come out of the East at the moment. They're my pick. I think that having two guards that are that good and this young, and they're really pissed off because they didn't make the Team USA team, and they were arguably really good during that training camp. I saw every practice that week, and both those guys played very well, and they didn't even have a chance to make the team. So for that to happen, those guys are pretty pissed off, especially John Wall, who's pretty much the fifth point guard on the roster, and he didn't get a chance to make the team. So it was kind of unfortunate of that, but those guys are going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to go at people every night. And I think as long as their front court stays healthy and Otto Porter can improve his game, I like their chances because Otto Porter's a guy that if he can play consistent, they don't do a whole lot, but just stay consistent, I like their chances.
What about Miami? Do you think they have a shot?
Well, I like Chicago over Miami. I think Chicago's right there. I think Washington and Chicago are in the top four. When it comes to Miami, I just don't know. I don't know what we're going to get because they have two players in Dwayne Wade and Luol Deng that are injury prone. And there are a couple other guys that when they get hurt, they're not out just for a game or two. They're out for a while. So it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to kind of forecast, how they're going to be. But what I will say is this. If Dwayne Wade stays healthy, he may have one more really good season in him left. He may have one more I told you so season left in him. So we'll see. My only concern with him is, of course, the injuries and can he play 80 games? Can he play 70 games? If he can play 70 games at a high level, then they'll be in the mix. If he can't, if he has to take a game off every other week and stuff like that, it's not going to work.
Western Conference-wise, do you think that there's a team, a team we're sleeping on right now that didn't make the playoffs that, could take that step this year? I guess not a lot of people, but some people think the Pelicans are that team. I don't see it. Too much inconsistency from Eric Gordon, Tyreek Evans. I like Anthony Davis, but I just don't see that team being able to break through in the West for another couple of years. What team do you see taking a step forward?
Oh, well, I actually like the Pelicans. I like the Pelicans because Anthony Davis, you can make an argument that Anthony Davis is in the top 10 players in the league. You can make an argument he's in the top 5 if you really want to. He's that good at this moment. But I like the Pelicans because of his growth, but also up until yesterday I would have said Tyreek Evans, but he's out for 3 to 5 weeks. I think them being fully healthy with Drew Holiday and Ryan Anderson, it's a pretty good team. They're in the West. It's going to be difficult. If you don't win 50 games in the West, there's no point in even having a conversation. But there's going to be a team in the West that was in the playoff last year that's not going to be in there this year. It's just how it goes. One way or another, someone takes the drop, whether it's by injury or by, stuff happens. And I think that team's going to be Houston Rockets. I don't think the Houston Rockets will be in the playoffs this year. I think we're going to see a team come out of nowhere. A team like the Pelicans can be that team. If Phoenix, I'm not sold on Phoenix, but they were right there last year. And if Eric Bledsoe stays healthy, who knows?
Don't you kind of feel like the Rockets need to bring back Jeff Van Gundy?
They need to bring back someone because their coaching staff is the worst right now, and I think that was their downfall last year. I thought they had a stellar coach. They probably would have made it to the conference finals because they really played San Antonio better than anyone else did during the season and whatnot. They played San Antonio very tough. They presented matchup problems. But when it comes to the Rockets, they're very, very limited on what they can do and how they can beat you. And I just don't know. At the end of the day, I just don't know if we can count on James Harden and Dwight Howard for being fully healthy and carrying the load for another, 82-game season. I just don't know. Harden's played basketball this whole summer, and Dwight Howard, as good as he is, he's putting a lot of he has a lot of miles on that body. I don't know if he can stay upright, so we'll definitely see. I just don't like the downgrade from Parsons to Ariza. I don't like that downgrade at all.
Yeah, a lot of people have their, 2 cents on Parsons and the Mavs paying too much to sign him, which, that you can make that argument, but it just seems like he was a perfect fit for Houston. He's a good third piece, and I don't like the dynamic in Houston where Harden and Dwight think that, obviously everything runs through them, but for them to basically come out and say it, they've both said things leading to that. It kind of bothers me, and I bet it kind of bothers other people, and that'll lead to problems with them being able to sign other free agents. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do think that it's one thing to say certain things out in the open, like certain things, like you may feel a certain type of way, but when you're a leader of a team, you don't make those kind of comments, man. You don't come out and say, there's only 2 really good players on this team, and everybody else is just another guy. Even though that may be true, you don't say that. As cocky as LeBron James and Kobe Bryant are, they would never say anything like that. They would maybe insinuate something else, but they would never come out directly and say anything like that. So, I have a problem with Harden and Dwight Howard saying stuff like that. And if you're a prospective free agent and you're looking at these guys, I wouldn't be happy to go there. We saw this summer they tried to chase LeBron, that didn't work. They tried to chase Carmelo, that didn't work. They tried to go after Chris Bosh, that didn't work. It's just not a situation where people want to go there. They got their guys. They got lucky with Dwight because of the Lakers situation, and they really didn't have anywhere else to go. And they got lucky with James Harden because Sam Presti, tried to get too cute with the acquisitions and the trade. So, but they have a good foundation. I just don't see them being a third guy. I don't see another third guy wanting to be there.
Okay. We're going to switch over to college football for a little bit. We'll get into NFL after the break. College football, Brady Hoke, could there be a person that does, could do more wrong for himself than Brady Hoke? He goes from having, a great start at Michigan. Now he's, got Michigan in the tank. They're 1-9 against their last 10 big Power 5 conference in their Power 5 conference matchups. And then he puts their quarterback back in after having a concussion. How much longer does this guy have?
Well, the late coach is getting fired. He may not make it to Halloween. He really may not make it. Depending on how they do in the next couple of weeks, he may be gone. He may be gone sooner rather than later. It just doesn't look like he's going to. It's not going to work out for him there. It's not. He's a guy that he was very good at San Diego State, but at the end of the day, he's just a guy that just really couldn't recruit that well. Michigan couldn't get the elite guys, and he couldn't win the big games. And if you can't do either of those, you're not going to survive at Michigan that much longer. It's crazy that his tenure at Michigan is pretty much remembered by being on the end of Jadeveon Clowney highlight reels and being a guy that, has interesting, press conferences and has personality. That's about it. Like, there's nothing on the field that, that he really brings to the table. And, he's stuck with some quarterbacks that really shouldn't have stuck with. But, yeah,